Good morning, Proximity. Happy Mother's Day. We have a special service for all you ladies. Let's get into the announcements. We usually give out gifts on Mother's Day, but since we can't all be together, we've decided to go ahead and donate to these 3 organizations on behalf of mothers. We are still planning on supporting First Place Options Bottle Drive this year and would encourage you to save from now until Father's Day so we can make a donation at that time. In terms of the offering, you can go to our Proximity website, you can click on the donate button. Once you're there, you can click on the make a donation button and then fill out your information and complete the donation. Let's join Debbie and Galen for some worship this morning.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me be falling, but he bids me go, though the voice of woe, his voice to me is calling. And he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. And the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
2 Timothy 1:5-7. I thank God, whom I serve with a pure conscience, as my forefathers did, as without ceasing I remember you in my prayers night and day, greatly desiring to see you, being mindful of your tears, that I may be filled with joy. When I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded is in you also. Therefore I remind you to stir up the gift of God which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Good morning, Proximity, and happy Mother's Day to all of you lovely ladies out there. So today we have a special service for you, I guess, service. So we have my grandma, Faye. Woo!
Hey, Faye.
Hi. And my mom, Heather.
Hello.
And then me, and I'm Cassie. If you don't know who we are, Pastor Jason's wife, Pastor Jason's mother-in-law, Pastor Jason's daughter. So hopefully that's clear enough. So we are going to be going through the text that was read out beforehand, and then we are going to be answering some questions and talking kind of about how we would answer those questions based on our relationship to one another. Okay, so we are going to start by just kind of giving a funny memory that we have, maybe of our mom or of one another, that we have, just to kind of get talking. Grandma, if you want to start, do you have one of maybe even your daughter, or
I
probably a lot?
No.
She's kind of hilarious.
I'm missing on that one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Heather, you go.
There's nothing funny about you, apparently.
Funny stories about my mom.
Yeah.
They had lots of those.
Yeah, so one day I was, back in the days when we wore nylons to church and dresses, I think I was about 12 or 13, and I noticed that I had a run in my stocking, and I said to my Mom, like, I can't go into church. There's no way. I was so scared that people are going to notice the run in my stocking, and I was really upset. And so she's talking to me in the lobby at church, and she says to me, Heather, don't be so silly. Do you think everybody's here to look at your legs? And I remember stopping and thinking and going, well, yeah, I guess they didn't come to look at my legs, so so that worked for the time being anyway. So I always tease my mom about that. I thought that was pretty funny.
My funny story is that my mom did the exact same thing to me, and I had a stain on my pants from something I ate or whatever, and then we were about to go into a room where there's like a bunch of people my age, and so I was in the bathroom and I was freaking out, and then you were like, when I was your age, my mom told me that nobody cares about your legs, nobody's looking at you, so like, get over it. So
Kind of probably like that too.
She did the same.
I'm not nearly as nice as my mom. My mom is really nice.
she was like, just go in there, you're fine. Anyways,
get over
but yeah, there's a lot of funny memories, but probably too many to share right
Yeah,
now.
lots
a
of
lot of
funny
good
ones.
Yeah.
Lots of funny ones.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to be talking about is in verse 5, and we're going to be talking about a memory that has strengthened our faith. So is there a memory, Grandma, of your mom that strengthened your faith, or something in her that you saw?
Yeah, she was a woman who always read the scripture and studied it. Mom kept notes all the time, and she had whole books, that when we looked back, she had written down every day. But when we were young too, I remember she would always pray with us before we went off to school. So she always set that example.
Yeah, that's really cool. Mom, what about you?
Well, the thing I remember about my mom, is that she was always very calm. Except there was 1 or 2 times I can remember her getting flustered, and she might think it was more than that, but she was always very calm. And she always allowed me to ask questions, and I always thought that was really important. I never realized till I look back, both my parents parented us with the idea that asking questions is a good thing. And so when it came to my faith, any questions I had at home weren't really off the table, and I could ask them. And I really appreciated that you would ask me questions back, or if you didn't know, you'd say, oh, okay, well, I don't know, but maybe we can look it up or figure it out. And so I always really appreciated that part of my parents' faith, that they weren't, they were secure enough in their faith with God that they weren't afraid when people would ask questions. And I think sometimes we get a little afraid when people ask questions, so we don't know, or maybe they're going to lose their faith, but really the opposite is true. And so it's really great when we can can let our kids ask questions and when we can talk to each other in question form and not be afraid of questions, but just that's an opportunity to dig a little deeper into our faith. And I think that's really important.
Good one. A memory that has strengthened my faith about my mom, I think would have to be kind of the conversations that we have where we disagree, which is kind of funny. I feel like we get into like theological talks or like talks about a certain issue, and we both kind of butt heads a little bit
Because I'm usually right, but
Okay. Anyways, we butt heads about things sometimes when we're talking, but I think that it's just because we're like so close and so confident in like the relationship that we have that we can talk to each other like that. And so a lot of those conversations, I sometimes walk away thinking, okay, is there something like that I'm missing, or should I be more empathetic to this kind of situation, or should I be viewing it in a different kind of light? Whereas maybe sometimes I'm a little stuck in my thinking, and then she's like, well, what about this? And then I'm like, oh, why did you challenge me on that? But it's actually been good, and it's good that we can have those kind of conversations. So I guess kind of like what you were talking about with your mom, like we have grown up being able to ask questions. And I think that's been extremely important for us kids in being able to keep our faith and understanding why we believe what we believe. I mean, it was never like, you have to believe this, and that's just the way it's been forever and ever. And, we were allowed to say, this doesn't really make sense to me, and what about this, what about that? And so you guys were really good at just having conversations with us, even if they got maybe a little intense, but it's okay because we all love each other. Okay. So the next one is what gifts are you grateful for in each other? So this is in verse 6. What gifts are you grateful for in each other? So I guess we can talk about you can talk about both of us, and we can talk about both of you, or maybe something in your mom.
Chance to talk about you. Well, I was thinking Heather has so many is strong as a leader, and she can speak up and direct projects and whatnot. So I saw her really strong as a leader. Probably she was the most defiant of the 3 children growing up. Maybe that's been a good thing.
maybe.
And so that is a strength, and she is such able to spend time with her friends and is concerned about them and all of those things. Very caring. What I wrote down, probably able to listen, and she does that very well. And then for Cassie, it's her gift of artwork and her leadership qualities, which she doesn't know yet that she has them. Oh. And that's what's so nice
now
about
I do.
her. And again, seeing her developing and her art particularly, and where she's going with that, and her kindness.
Oh,
good.
Thank you.
Hey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so for gifts and my mom, and this is something you can do today, Mother's Day, with your mom, or even just think about those things that you kind of really appreciate about your mom, and I'm sure you're already doing that, but maybe she needs to be told or reminded about those gifts, so that's always good. So for me, my mom always chose careers that were very giving and nurturing, and she was a nurse when she first graduated from school back in 1963.
Yeah.
She became a nurse, and if you can just imagine Faye by your side when you're sick, that would be just the best thing ever.
The
And I had
kindest
that
lady.
growing up. Whenever I was sick, my mom was always there with the ginger ale and holding my head and all the great things. So her caring, and then she chose a career after that as an attendance counselor in a high school where she would meet families, very much a social working type job. She always cared for the underdog, and I think that's where I really realized that comes from, that she would always allow room for people who didn't seem to have it all together, or people who weren't at the top of everybody else's priority list or the most popular. She was very much into people who just maybe didn't have it all together. And don't tell my dad, because then that'd be like she chose him. We're kidding, Dad. She didn't.
No.
That's not why she chose you, obviously. But my mom's just, her caring nature is just so incredible, and I think that's what I've always tried to live up to, is just having that caring about people regardless of the situation. So much like Jesus did. He really didn't go along with the status quo, and neither did my mom, in terms of who was worthy, and because none of us are worthy. And so I saw that in my mom. And then for Cassie, you have this underlying quietness, but it's like such a strength. Your, I guess if we could say, introverted nature causes you to really think deeply about things and to be very passionate about them. And it comes out in your artwork, and it comes out in your dealings with people, and you don't want to do things unless they kind of really matter. And I think that is
Lazy.
sort of a really deep gifting that's there, that you don't you genuinely want to be. I guess it's your genuineness. Anyway,
That's a nice one.
Genuineness. I like that. Okay.
all right.
So in Grandma, I think you.
We're still at grandma, are we?
Yes, I think that you are very positive, and I can only remember like maybe one time that you ever got mad at me when I was little, and you told me not to jump over the radio that was on the floor, but I kept jumping over it, so you gave me a spanking. And that's the only time that I ever remember. I was in shock, because I was like, my grandma is an angel. Why would she do that? Anyways, so I was just in complete shock. But I think your positivity and your kindness, you always seem to be in a very good mood. And I can tell that you are very passionate about things, but you're gentle in the way that you're passionate about things. Like, you really, I think, are kind of a deep thinker, and you're very, I guess, empathetic. I guess that's something that I feel like you probably passed on to your daughter, is empathy. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. And then I think in my mom, what gifts am I grateful for in my mom? I think that you are a very good mix of both of your parents. I think that you are kind of gentle and empathetic, but then I think that you kind of get probably your stubbornness from your dad, if I can say that, kind of your,
I don't think I'm stubborn, but
Feisty.
Feisty is a good word. I think you are kind
Most
of
people
feisty.
don't know that I'm
And it's
feisty,
really, it's nice, yeah, because most people don't know that, but she is.
Yeah, and I was
Someone
thinking
can
when
be feisty.
you were talking about your mom taking care of you when you were sick, I think it's like you always take care of us. Like, I'm 23 now, and you still, like, if I'm sick, you will like look after me. And we always, like, us kids have been talking and said, like, if we get up in the middle of the night and we're sick, like, somehow you just know. So I think that's
what
something.
happens when you become a mom.
Motherhood.
It's just
Motherhood.
Yeah.
there.
So anyways, and so the next one, the last one, is found in verse 7. How have you seen, like, power, love, and having a sound mind in each other? God has not given us a spirit of fear. Like, how have we seen each other exude that kind of peace that comes from God?
Well, one question I had for you, Mom, was when your dad died when you were 14, how did you not become angry with God? Like, how did this verse where you just seem to be able to get through that at that time? Because a lot of kids would have become angry or bitter. Like, how did you come through that?
I guess possibly one of the things was the Christian atmosphere and the safety in our home. And then the following week after he died, I went to high school from a one-room rural school, traveling on a bus into town to a high school that had about 500 kids. So my whole life changed, and I was so busy that I think later on I found myself dealing with Dad not being in the home, but also there was peace in our home even though he was gone. Mom and my aunts were people who helped you get through every day. So I don't recall being really angry about him going. I was confused about the fact that for many years he would be in the hospital for 5 or 6 weeks with a heart attack. Those days they kept him in bed and rest, and then he would be home for a long time and then go again, and then all of a sudden all of this stopped. So that was a confusion as to why did he get well and this time he didn't get well. So dealing with that, but I really think that probably knowing the Lord, even at an early age, made the difference, and we all got through it.
And I think that's what you talked about, the community that you had. And we were
Neighbors.
talking today earlier about how as women we can encourage and influence one another in the Christian community and beyond. Doesn't even just have to be with Christians, but we can encourage one another even if we're not moms. There's people in my life I can think of who've influenced me and have helped me through. And I do think when it says that God's not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind, a lot of times we experience that peace through other people in our lives. And so I think it's so important that we reach out to other women in our lives, because a lot of times we feel so alone, or all the things that we're feeling, and we don't realize how much other women are feeling the exact same way. And until we start reaching out, whether it's a text or a phone call or a message, I do think that we need one another and we need that community of support. And I do think that's one of the places that God shows us his love for us, and that's why it's so important in the body of Christ that we support one another and we love one another, and that's where we see him really at work, is when we have these disagreements like we talked about earlier. He's still there with us, helping us. It's never just oh la 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 Pollyanna, everything is wonderful, rose-colored glasses. But I think part of the tough things we go through and the angst that we feel sometimes with other people is part of what we need to work out as believers with each other, and helps us grow in our faith with God too.
Yeah, I think what you've said about, needing other people and thinking that what we experience is something that we experience like unique to us. I think a lot of us get in our heads and we think, I'm the only one experiencing this, or nobody else understands how I feel. But when we take those situations and we start to talk to other people about them, we realize just how much everybody is going through the same thing. But a lot of the time people are just kind of afraid to talk about it. And so I think community, and especially even like within our own family, we have generations, obviously, of people and women.
And we live together.
And we all live together, so that's fun.
Yeah.
But we have generations of believers in our family. So really, we are kind of in a constant community of people who believe. And so we can get that advice and that support, from anybody. But it kind of is on a different level when we can get that advice from other believers, especially for a woman to get advice from another believer who's also a woman can be really, really helpful. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm most grateful for, is just that we have so many generations. Like even Grandma was telling us that her grandma was a believer, both of her grandmas were believers, and so really it's just all the way through. That's one of the things that I feel like I've been most blessed with, is that I was born into a family of believers, and believers who, like I was saying earlier, don't just say this is the truth and that's how it is, but have actually encouraged us to talk and have conversations and to discuss the things that are difficult. And I think that can really provide peace and a sound mind. And when we get together and we talk about those things, I think that can be very helpful.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been raised in a Christian or you know, you're the first believer in your generation, you do have an opportunity to be that support for people growing in their faith, whether you realize it or not. Your kids will watch you. Friends and neighbors will watch you. You're influencing people with your faith, whether you think you're doing anything big or not. Where you put your trust and how you respond to life situations is something that people do take note of. So, you know, it can start with you, with just plugging away and being faithful in your walk with Christ to encourage other people and just be there and use your gifts and talents.
Yeah.
Now, one story that I really liked was the one that you were talking about Grandma and what she saved up.
Oh, yeah.
That's so cute.
One time Grandma was telling me how she had worked for the whole summer on a farm or babysitting, and she got $100 for the whole summer.
$100.
And that was a big deal, and she saved up her money, and she bought some paint to paint her furniture in her room and a quilt, a new quilt for her bed. And I think that's really funny because if you know us, all of us have this kind of like creative gene, this like love for decor and like
Moving
interiors,
things around,
moving
painting
things. Yeah, we all three of us, I think, are very into that kind of scene. And so I just thought that was so funny because that's something I don't think a lot of like 15-year-olds would have been doing, like buying paint or buying a new quilt.
That's cute.
But I think that's something that all of us have in common, and probably something like, I think it's funny that your mom let you paint your furniture at like 15 in your room, because like you let me paint like basically anything as long as I ask. And so I think it's just funny that, and probably your mom, if you were like, oh, I really want to rearrange my room, she would be like, okay, let's do it. Like we all have that kind of, we get excited about the same kind of things with like interior decor. And
well, one day I came home and my mom had knocked out a wall in our kitchen. She just knocked it out herself. I guess she'd been planning it, but she was really the handy woman. So she would knock out walls and move cabinets and things like that. And so it was always fun growing up in our house. There was always something different. She took a kitchen table base, and then she didn't have a proper top for it, so she went and got a great big piece of cork and then put a trim around it, and that was the top of our table. And then she got all these, this is years ago, this was like
way back.
30 years ago. She got mixed-matched chairs and painted them all blue, and we had them in our kitchen. And I always remember thinking, like, my mom could use just really simple things and make them really beautiful. And so I think that idea of not having to have a lot of money to enjoy design and decor and to enjoy our space, I think is really important in our homes too, that we can enjoy our space without having to have a lot of things or have to have the latest kind of thing, but we can use our creativity to make our homes how we want to have them and then reflect us, and invite other people in, and that they can enjoy our spaces too.
I was just thinking about that one time that we got a wallpaper and did that whole wall in my room, and then like a week later I was like, I don't like it. And so then all of us,
it
you
off.
were like working so hard on it. I was like, oh, my grandma, I'm making her like, we took a whole day to put it up, and then we took it down, and I just thought that was so funny. And it wasn't even like that big of a deal. You're like, well, let's take it down, like whatever. So I just thought that was funny. But
it's how you learn. You gotta try stuff sometimes.
What you're saying about like hospitality and allowing people into our homes, I think is something that I've definitely noticed with my mom, is that she, like, when other people come over, she can't like sit down and just, she likes to, I'll bake some cinnamon buns from scratch, and I'll do this, does anybody need food? And we often have to be like, sit down, it's okay, nobody needs anything. Like, it's hard to get you to just like relax. And
I know, but I like it.
She likes it apparently, so it's
Well, I
fine.
remember one time when we had people over in our house and I was a teenager, And my mom brought out these pile of plates, and she went to lift the first one off, and the food had stuck from the last time to the plate,
to the
and she was so
dishwasher.
embarrassed. And she's like,
Yes.
oh, look at this. And there's a room full of people, and everybody laughed, and it was pretty funny. But that kind of reminded me that, everything doesn't have to be perfect. We can just have people into our homes, and they're going to remember how we made them feel or how they felt in our spaces. And I think that's really a picture for me of how God is with us, and that's a whole other topic.
sermon. So I think if there's nothing, do you want to share something, Grandma? Or?
No, I was just thinking that Heather and I talked about a verse of scripture. If you love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind and all your strength, that covers pretty well it, doesn't it, gals?
Pretty much.
Your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength.
Yeah.
That's covering all the areas of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
And so we're just going to quickly pray for you guys, you women, and you guys, I guess, everybody.
Everybody.
We're going to pray for all the people right now. Thank you, Jesus, for today, that we are able to, even though this might be a difficult situation, that we are able to be with the people that we love. And hopefully, Lord, for those who are alone during this time, I pray that you would just comfort them, that you would give them your peace, your love, your power, that spirit of a sound mind, that you would eradicate all fear. And I pray especially for the women, Lord, that you would draw them close to you in this season, that you would help us to be strong women who remain steadfast in our beliefs and are able to be a light for women in other generations from all over the place, Lord, from every background, that we would be able to stand together and lift up your name and bring glory to you, and that we would use the gifts that you've given us to further your cause, Father, that empathy and mercy and love, God, that you have given us, both men and women, Father, that we would take those things and that we would use them for your good and for your cause. And so we just pray that you would bless all of the mothers, all of the women, all of the girls today, and that you would bless the men too, but maybe a bit more on Father's Day. Amen. All right, thank you guys for joining with us. Hopefully you enjoyed. We are signing off. Goodbye. Happy Mother's Day.